The first time the doll moved, it was just a whisper of fabric, too soft, too fleeting to notice. But something in the room changed. The air thickened, and the old wooden floor beneath the shelf groaned, though no weight had shifted. Ellie, the new tenant of the crumbling Victorian house in Alderfield, blamed the draft. She blamed a lot of things: creaking doors, cold spots, lights flickering, for the growing unease that called in her gut. But it all began with the doll. It sat on a high shelf in the attic room she had turned into a studio. Dustcoat and small, with porcelain skin cracked like dry riverbeds and eyes like tiny wells of midnight. It wore a tattered lace dress and held one hand out, as though asking to be held. Ellie hadn't placed it there. In fact, the room had been completely empty when she moved in. Or so she thought. She didn't touch it. By the third night, things became wrong. She would go to sleep with the attic door shut. But in the morning, it would hang half open, cold air leaking into the hallway. The doll, silent, still, had changed position. It no longer sat on the shelf. Instead, it stood on the floor, facing the door. Ellie took it to the trash bin behind the house and buried it under banana peels and rotting newspaper. She told herself she had imagined everything. That night, the attic door creaked open again. At 2:47 a.m., she woke to the sound of light footsteps. Pat-pat. Pat-pat. Bare feet, small, slow, childlike, moving across the floor above. Her stomach clenched. There was no one else in the house. Not a child. Not anyone. Then the voice came. Faint. Whispered. A child's giggle first, then something clearer, darker. Mommy. Ellie bolted upstairs with a flashlight and a bat. The attic was cold as a grave. But there, standing in the center of the room, was the doll. Mud clung to its tiny feet. Its arm was no longer stretched outward. Instead, it pointed toward the far wall. A scratch. A child's scrawl etched into the wallpaper, "Find me." Ellie moved out of the house the next day, but the doll followed. First, she saw it in the trunk of her car. Then, in the lobby of her new apartment. Finally, it reappeared in her living room, wet, dirted, as though it had walked across half the town to find her. Each night, it moved closer to her bed. She did research. She uncovered the story of the house's previous owners. A family with a girl named Clara who had gone missing during a winter snowstorm 30 years ago. Her body was never found. Only her doll had turned up, lying at the edge of the frozen riverbank. They said Clara had loved that doll more than anything. Talked to it. Slept with it. Told it her secrets. Ellie traced the history to a woman named Mrs. Langford, Clara's mother, now a shell of a woman in a care facility, repeating the same sentence again and again. She's still looking for me. She's still looking, still looking. The doll began to whisper. In the dead hours of the night, Ellie would wake up to feel breath on her cheek. She'd open her eyes to see the doll on her pillow, eyes unblinking, lips parted as if caught mid-word. "Where is she?" it whispered. "Where is my mommy?" Ellie's mental state crumbled. Sleep-deprived and hallucinating, she tried burning the doll. It screamed, an inhuman, screeching wail that cracked the windows and made blood drip from the light bulbs. When she awoke the next morning, the burn marks were on her own hands, not the doll's. The toy sat calmly on her chest. Ellie finally decided to end it. She returned to the riverbank where Clara had vanished. Snow fell silently as she dug through the hardened soil, guided by whispers only she could hear. Deeper and deeper, until her shovel struck something hollow. A tiny skeleton. Arms curled around its ribcage. A locket rusted to its neck. Next to it, a photo, Ellie, age 6, holding the very same doll. A forgotten memory surged. She had lived in Alderfield once. She had played with a girl named Clara. They were best friends. And then Clara disappeared. And Ellie never spoke of it again. The wind howled as Ellie dropped to her knees, realization crushing her like a tombstone. "You left me." She turned. The doll stood on the edge of the hole. No longer broken. Its eyes were glowing, filled with the fury of decades abandoned. Its dress was clean. It looked almost alive. "You promised you'd come back." Ellie's scream echoed into the trees. Days later, search parties found nothing but a dug-up grave and the faint trail of small footprints in the snow, circling the site. And on a tree branch nearby, a doll dangled by its arm, swaying gently in the breeze. Waiting. Still walking. Still searching. For the girl who left her behind.